The hidden truth history try to hide, how Islam shaped the ancient world. Imagine discovering that some of the greatest achievements of humanity, advanced mathematics, medicine, architecture, and philosophy, were inspired by civilization your textbooks never told you about. What if everything you believed about history was incomplete or even wrong? Today, we follow the shocking journey of a historian who, as an atheist, never expected to uncover the hidden Islamic influence that shaped the ancient world. It began in a quiet, sunlit office at the University of Cambridge, where Dr. Jonathan Marks, a renowned historian and self-proclaimed atheist, spent his days buried in ancient texts. He had dedicated his life to uncovering the origins of human civilization, yet he had never encountered a clue that challenged his worldview. History, to him, was a story of human ambition, triumph, and failure, with no higher power guiding its course. Jonathan had recently been assigned a new project to catalog and study a collection of manuscripts acquired from an obscure Middle Eastern estate. These texts were said to be centuries old, some even dating back to the early Islamic era, though no one had yet understood their significance. Jonathan approached them with skepticism. After all, he had seen countless claims of lost knowledge that turned out to be nothing more than embellished myths. The first manuscript he opened was a treatise on mathematics, authored by an unknown scholar centuries before the Renaissance. As he flipped through the pages, he noticed diagrams and equations that bore a striking resemblance to works attributed to later European mathematicians. A spark of curiosity ignited in him. Not faith, just intellectual intrigue. How could these ideas exist centuries earlier than he had thought? As the days turned into weeks, Jonathan pored over more manuscripts. He discovered intricate designs for water clocks, advanced astronomical charts, and detailed medical texts that predated Western publications by hundreds of years. Each revelation chipped away at the certainty he had held for decades. These weren't simple coincidences. They were evidence of a sophisticated and thriving intellectual culture that the history books had largely ignored. One afternoon, while examining a manuscript on optics, Jonathan's mind was drawn to a single line. The seeker of knowledge must see the light in creation as a reflection of the divine. He paused. The phrase didn't align with his materialist beliefs, yet the beauty of its insight struck him. Here was a scholar, centuries ago, combining empirical observation with philosophical reflection, a harmony of science and spirituality he had never encountered in Western texts. Driven by obsession, Jonathan decided to trace the influence of these manuscripts. He discovered that many early European thinkers, mathematicians, physicians, and architects had studied Arabic translations of classical works preserved and enhanced by Muslim scholars. Algebra, trigonometry, medicine, even the very foundations of scientific inquiry in Europe bore the fingerprints of Islamic scholars like Al-Khwarizmi, Ibn Sina, and Al-Razi. Jonathan could hardly believe what he was finding. He had spent his life teaching that history was the product of European ingenuity. Yet here was undeniable proof that centuries of innovation had been built upon the contributions of Muslim scholars. His scholarly pride wrestled with a growing sense of wonder. He couldn't dismiss the facts. They were too compelling, too meticulously documented. As he delved deeper, Jonathan uncovered manuscripts describing advanced surgical techniques, astronomical observatories, and complex philosophical debates that predated the Enlightenment. Each page he turned seemed to whisper a story that had been buried by time, a story of intellectual brilliance, humility, and devotion to knowledge. One evening, Jonathan sat alone in his office, surrounded by piles of manuscripts. He noticed a recurring theme. Each scholar expressed a profound respect for the pursuit of knowledge as a sacred duty, a way of understanding the universe and, indirectly, its creator. It was not blind faith he saw, but a meticulous, reasoned, and awe-inspired search for truth. Jonathan felt an unfamiliar emotion, a combination of reverence, humility, and a creeping doubt of his own assumptions. He was an atheist who had prided himself on empirical evidence. Yet he now confronted a historical reality that could not be explained by coincidence. The intellectual legacy of Islam was woven into the fabric of human progress, undeniable and majestic. Compelled to share his findings, Jonathan organized a lecture for the university. He expected skepticism, perhaps even ridicule, but he knew the truth demanded acknowledgement. As he spoke to a crowded hall, he traced the flow of knowledge from Baghdad to Cordoba, from Damascus to Florence, showing how Islamic scholars preserved, enhanced, and transmitted classical knowledge. He explained the meticulous methodologies, the innovations, the philosophical depth. By the time he finished, the room was silent. Students and colleagues alike were captivated, not merely by the historical details, but by the narrative of human intellect enriched by Islamic scholarship. Jonathan felt an internal shift, not religious conversion in the conventional sense, but a profound recognition that Islam had played a pivotal role in shaping the world he had always studied. In the weeks that followed, Jonathan continued his research, uncovering more evidence of Islamic influence on law, ethics, architecture, and the natural sciences. Each discovery deepened his respect for a civilization that had been systematically ignored or undervalued in mainstream historical narratives. He traveled to Cairo, Baghdad, and Damascus, visiting libraries, mosques, and ancient observatories. He met scholars, historians, and custodians of knowledge who preserved texts that few Western academics had seen. Every manuscript, every architectural marvel, every astronomical instrument testified to a civilization that valued reason, inquiry, and faith in harmony. Jonathan began writing a comprehensive book documenting his findings, weaving together history, philosophy, and scientific discovery. His narrative was not just about facts. It was about the human story, how curiosity, dedication, and faith had propelled civilizations forward. By the time the book was published, it became a sensation. Academics praised its meticulous scholarship. General readers were captivated by the story of hidden influence and intellectual inheritance. Jonathan, once an atheist skeptic, now stood as a bridge between cultures, demonstrating that history, when honestly examined, reveals the profound contributions of Islamic civilization. In private moments, Jonathan reflected on his journey. He did not claim full religious belief, but he had developed a deep respect for the intellectual and spiritual foundations of Islam. The manuscripts had done more than rewrite history. They had rewritten the way he understood humanity, knowledge, and the pursuit of truth. And so, a historian who began his life skeptical of faith ended up humbled by evidence, inspired by wisdom, and changed forever by the realization that Islam had quietly shaped the foundations of the modern world. If this story inspired you, imagine how many hidden gems of knowledge and wisdom are waiting in Islam for you to discover. Subscribe to Deen in Minute for more thrilling stories of history, faith, and revelation. Hit the bell icon and never miss a journey that could change the way you see the world.